I guess I've told you about my condition.
Only every time I see ya. Come on, I'll buy you lunch.
Imagine trying to put together a puzzle, but every few minutes or so the pieces begin to fall apart, and you have to start over again from scratch. This is what life is like for Leonard Shelby, a man who suffers from a condition called Anterograde Amnesia. It's a form of amnesia which causes a person to be unable to form new memories. The puzzle that Leonard is trying to put together will eventually form the image of John G., the man who broke into his home in the middle of the night, raped and killed his wife, and caused his amnesia by bludgeoning him in the back of the head with a club. It's Leonard's mission to find this man to enact his revenge, with the caveat that he will have to start his investigation over every few minutes or so, with nothing to go off of other than the clues he's left for himself in the form of scattered notes and photographs. Having a main character with this sort of condition creates what in all respects should be a massive barrier for the viewer when it comes to their ability to put themselves in the protagonist's shoes, but Memento gets around this in an extremely clever way. We are shown the story, for the most part, in reverse, or rather, a reverse chronology, where we get to see what happens at the end of the story first and work our way backwards from that point, jumping back to the previous memory each time Leonard experiences a lapse. This creates a scenario where rather than having to try to put ourselves into Leonard's shoes, we just experience the story how he does. Every time we jump back to the previous memory, we have only as much information about what's going on as he does, and as a result, we are left, for the most part, just as confused as Leonard, and oftentimes led to similar incorrect conclusions.
I don't feel drunk.
Was it good for you?
Teddy, don't believe his lies. He is the one. Kill him.
This creates an incredibly unique viewing experience and allows us to understand on a much deeper level what it might be like to constantly lose recent memory. Being capable of forming new memories isn't something that most of us would consider a luxury, and the idea that it's even possible to lose the ability to form new ones probably isn't a thought that any of us have ever naturally had. But consider the importance that this single factor has on our lives. Our memories are what make us who we are. They're responsible for forming our understanding of how the world works. They help us determine reality from fiction, and without the ability to form new ones, all opportunities for growth and development are virtually gone. With Leonard not being able to form new memories, it begs the question, how is he supposed to heal?
How am I supposed to heal if I can't feel time?
It's a good question, and likely Leonard can't heal, at least not while he's absorbed by his obsession for revenge. It's a common theme in stories that seeking revenge doesn't bring about any sort of peace, only more pain for everyone involved. It doesn't resolve any feelings of anger or discontent, it doesn't bring back those that we've lost, and it won't bring back Leonard's ability to form new memories. Leonard realizes this by the end of the movie, or the beginning depending on how you look at it, when Teddy reveals to him that he had in fact already enacted his revenge on John G. When he learns this, he understands that despite having carried out the act, it didn't change anything for him, and since he knows he will forget this lesson he just learned, he decided to do the only thing he could to break out of the cycle. This is why he writes himself the notes that will eventually lead him into believing that Teddy is John G., because in this moment, Leonard is able to see the whole picture and realizes that as long as Teddy is around, he will do everything in his power to stop Leonard from being able to move on. The only way out of the cycle is to break it, and the only way Leonard knew how to break it was to tell himself a lie.
So you lie to yourself to be happy. There's nothing wrong with that. We all do it. Who cares if there's a few little details you'd rather not remember?
We all lie to ourselves here and there. Sometimes it can make things easier, or at least feel easier if we can bring ourselves to believe the lies. Maybe you hate your job, but you tell yourself that you don't because it makes it easier to get out of bed in the morning. Maybe you aren't happy in your relationship, but you tell yourself that you are because being alone is more terrifying than being unhappy. Maybe you know that revenge won't give you your life back, but as long as you have something to work towards, you can stay motivated. And as long as you can stay motivated, you don't have to think about the things you'd rather not remember. It's complacency, and Teddy embodies this more than anyone else in the film. He is the choice to ignore the truth in favor of what's comfortable and familiar. He claims that what he is doing is to help Leonard, but in reality that's just another lie. He writes off any hope that Leonard can move on because he didn't remember killing the real John G., and rather than trying a different approach, he decided to take advantage of Leonard's condition and convince him to kill more people.
Lenny, come on. You're not a killer.
That's why you're so good at it.
Teddy knows exactly what he's doing here, but refuses to admit this to himself. Unfortunately for him, lies eventually surface, and when they do, there are consequences.
No!
Nobody ever said that moving on is easy, but pretending that it's impossible makes you just as much a prisoner to time as Leonard. There is no healing without growth, and there is no growth without first looking into the mirror and being honest with yourself about what you see staring back at you. Everything in life is a matter of perspective. It's just a matter of finding the right one.
Memory's unreliable.
Oh, please.
No, really. Memory's not perfect. It's not even that good. Ask the police. Eyewitness testimony is unreliable. The cops don't catch a killer by sitting around remembering stuff.
Right.
They collect facts.
That's not what I'm
They
saying.
make notes and they draw conclusions. Facts, not memories.
Memory is unreliable. In situations involving high stress, we might run into difficulties accurately remembering what actually happened. The stress we felt in that situation blurs our perceptions, as well as our ability in general to recall what we actually saw at the time. In this way, it is entirely possible to tell a lie while still being completely truthful. It's the difference between stating the truth and stating the facts. Truth is just our beliefs. Facts are indisputable, the real truth. This distinction is a theme which comes up pretty often in this film as we find out that more and more of what Leonard believes isn't quite true. The Jaguar and suit aren't actually his. Natalie isn't as much of a victim as he thinks, and Sammy Jenkins didn't accidentally take his wife's life. In fact, he didn't even have a condition that was affecting his memory.
Sammy let his wife kill herself. Sammy ended up in an institution.
Sammy was a con man, a faker.
By the point Leonard ends up killing Teddy, most of what he believes isn't actually true at all, and at best some of the information is half true. He's been tricked and taken advantage of by everyone who interacts with him. Teddy, Natalie, and even himself. Leonard takes all of his notes at face value because he is the one who wrote them, so his understanding of the truth ends up being anecdotal. He knows that people will try to lie and take advantage of him, so he learns only to trust himself, but fails to recognize the possibility that his word can be unreliable as well.
I'm not a killer. I'm just someone who wanted to make things right.
Memento ends similarly to how it begins, ambiguously. It's not exactly a happy ending, but I would also hesitate to call it a sad one. It's just kind of an ending. And that's not a bad thing. In fact, I think it adds to the effect this movie is trying to have, or at least the effect that I perceive it as trying to have. To me, Memento is about choosing to be a victim. Leonard chose to let what happened to him define him and makes all of his choices based off of that event that occurred in his home that night. It has complete and total control over him, and until the final scenes of the movie, he finds himself transfixed on the idea of revenge, something that we learn will be a barrier to his ability to stop being the victim as long as Teddy is around. If Leonard was able to find a way to break free from this despite his condition, then the message I'm getting out of this is that none of us have an excuse to remain as victims either.
We all need mirrors to remind ourselves who we are. I'm no different.
And Leonard isn't any different. We all need to look in the mirror from time to time to make sure that what we see staring back at us is actually a version of ourselves that we want to see.
Now, where was I?